This is the second video in a series I'm doing on what it's like to reread the Chronicles of Narnia as an adult. Today I'm focusing on the second published book, Prince Caspian. I know in the last video I said I wasn't going to do any plot summary, but I've decided that after reading Prince Caspian, it's necessary to give a little bit of a recap of what happened in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe to give some context as to what Prince Caspian is talking about. In The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the youngest of four siblings, Lucy, finds her way into a magical realm through a wardrobe in her uncle's house. Her siblings don't believe her at first, but eventually they all stumble upon Narnia together. They find that Narnia, this magical realm, is cursed with an eternal winter. The younger of the two boys, Edmund, is tricked by the White Witch who caused the curse to betray his siblings to her. Aslan, who is the son of Narnia's emperor, sacrifices himself in Edmund's stead when Edmund is about to be executed for being a betrayer. But due to an ancient magic put in place by the emperor, once Aslan sacrifices himself to save a sinner, he's restored and reborn. After this, Edmund, Peter, Susan, and Lucy, the four siblings, become kings and queens of Narnia for a long time, before they eventually make their way back to the world that we know. Essentially, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is a retelling of the life and death and then resurrection of Jesus Christ. When Prince Caspian begins, the siblings have been back in Britain for about a year when they get magically recalled to Narnia. But when they get there, it's not the Narnia that they remember. It has been hundreds, maybe 1,000 years, it's hard to tell since they've been there, and Narnia has been overrun by humans. The talking animals and the mystical creatures that they met before have been forced underground and aren't acknowledged by the current regime. Times have been especially hard since a usurper king has taken the throne, and the name of Aslan is all but forgotten. This new Narnia is Lewis's representation of a secular regime. Mankind has lost sight of the glory of Aslan and his emperor father. Since then, mankind has become afraid of the forests and the seas, and this has made it impossible for mankind to expand or advance. To get a little context about Lewis's theological viewpoint, I've looked up the Wikipedia article on Christian apologists. Basically, Lewis wants to create a rational argument for the necessity of Christian leadership and Christian morality in government and society. Lewis's work operates on the underlying assumption that you cannot have order or justice in a society without Christian morals and leadership. Lewis attempts to illustrate this in a few ways. First, the morally defunct society I mentioned before. The mainstream rejects a belief in Aslan, and as a result they've become technologically and culturally stagnant. Later, Lucy sees Aslan when no one else can. She and her siblings are traveling through the country and they're hopelessly lost. Aslan points Lucy in the right direction, even though this path at first seems more difficult and less fruitful than the path everybody else wants to take. Even though Lucy has been right in the past, they disregard her advice. They end up backtracking, losing time, and they end up taking Lucy's path anyway in the end. When Lucy speaks to Aslan later, he expresses disappointment in her for not having faith in him. She argues that she does, but she couldn't bring herself to break away from the group. When she asks what would have happened had she gone off on her own, Aslan replies, "To know what would have happened, child? No, nobody has ever told that. But anyone can find out what will happen." According to this, we cannot undo the mistakes we've made due to not listening to God in the past. We aren't supposed to dwell on these mistakes we've made. However, it is our responsibility to choose the righteous path in the future. The last example I want to bring up is when the two sisters, Susan and Lucy, are at a party headed up by Bacchus. Bacchus is the Roman god of wine, ecstasy, and madness. In this story, Bacchus is respectful of Aslan and acknowledges him as a higher being. He is accompanied by his wild handmaidens, and there's a lot of drinking, dancing, and merriment at this party. The girls have a good time, but Susan later remarks that she would not have felt safe at this party without Aslan's presence. Lewis means to show that a strong moral code, firmly based in Jesus' teachings, can save us from excess without impairing our ability to have a good time or impairing our ability to function in the world. Overall, I actually think that Lewis makes a decent argument for creating a society based on a codified set of morals that everybody agrees on. However, I don't think he makes a good argument for that set of morals being grounded specifically in Christianity. The Western world today operates on a codified set of laws created to maintain order. In theory, we separate church from government, and I don't personally think that this has impaired us the way the society in Prince Caspian was impaired. Technologically speaking, we're making more advances than ever before, and I think that varying religious and cultural viewpoints help inform and expand art, literature, and music, rather than hindering its development. Of course, I have the benefit of being able to look back at the past few decades and come to this conclusion, whereas Lewis did not have this advantage. My opinion on this is far from the definitive answer to these questions of how we should structure ourselves morally, so I'd love to know what you think. Does a moral society depend on religion? Are we structuring our own society right? Let me know what you think. Prince Caspian is not probably one of the more widely read books in the Chronicles of Narnia, so if you have not read it, I would really recommend it. It's a very thought-provoking book, and it brings up a lot of interesting questions. I don't have the time today, but after I've finished the series, I'm going to talk about Susan in her own special video, because the way that she's treated in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and here is very interesting and problematic for me. So I'll let you know what I think as I get around to it. And I will get a video up about the third book published, The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, as soon as I'm able to get that done. The questions that I asked earlier about moral structuring in society and religion are not rhetorical questions. Please let me know what you think below. I really would be interested to hear some other opinions on the subject. Until then, read critically, think critically, and don't forget to be awesome.